TheFrXion, however you want to call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World Tanks. Now, today is probably the last video I do on Frontlines for quite a while, so buckle up, settle in, because today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of Frontlines 2019. This is the very first episode, and I think some good feedback would probably help wargaming. But since they probably will not watch my video, since I don't think that wargaming watch any of my videos, sadly. No, yeah, they probably don't. It won't reach them, but still, I think it's quite important to get some points out and see how Frontline has been doing. Now, to get the very first thing off at the beginning, I want to say that I've really enjoyed Frontlines. I've enjoyed Frontlines back in 2018 when it first came out for tier 8s. It was great for tier 10s, not so much because it didn't really work out with tier 10s, but I still enjoyed the concept that they had. Since they only released it, I think, on super test servers or test servers back then, and I've already forgotten everything about the tier 10 Frontline match mode. I think that tier 8 is basically where this Frontline game mode is working at, and where it's at, where it's doing its best, and it's the most fun and the most rewarding as well. So I have a couple of points that I will work down, and I also have a couple of ideas to make it better, and some things that probably are annoying on a personal level, but might not be as annoying for the average Joe or the average player who does like to play that specific class, or yeah, I don't know, it's kind of super whack. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, before we get into the game, or at least into the points, let's take a look at the vehicle I'm driving. We're in the Centurion 5-1. We're playing the British Tier 8 premium tank, or actually Australian version. This is the one that they actually blew up. Wargaming did deliver a story behind this vehicle when they released it. It was used in testing in the desert somewhere in Australia, and they tested a nuclear explosive, and they wanted to see how this tank does fare. I think it did survive the blast, and I think they didn't even clean it up properly before they drove it back to base, something along those lines. It was, yeah, wild times, right? Wild times in the 50s. But yeah, that was their point of releasing this vehicle, and it has been one of the strongest tier 8 vehicles ever since, because it has the perfect turret of the Centurion that they actually released after they released this vehicle, with already the upgraded turret, and a very, very potent upper hull plate. Now, all of those things do kind of scream overpowered, and basically they are. But that's one of the things you'll have to get used to while playing Frontlines. That is basically what's going to be happening. A lot of people playing powerful premium tanks, because Frontlines does give you a lot of credits. Now, that's not the very first point that I want to bring, but the very first point I wanted to bring is that you're finally playing against only tier 8 tanks. That's huge. That's a huge thing for me. I've been playing this game for 8 years now, almost 8 years. I think in April it's going to be 8 years. I've been playing this game for so long. I've been playing it on and off, and most of the time I've been online, and I've enjoyed it most of the time, but there were several days that I did not enjoy, and I think that is fair to say. But what I've noticed is that during that time, probably around 30% of my matches were same tier opponents, and about 70% were either higher tier or lower tier opponents. So basically, a lot of vehicles never really got to test out the same tier matchmaking, and that is a huge bummer for me, because if you look at tier 8, and if you're looking at Frontlines, where matchmaking basically is working out perfectly, although there are a couple of vehicles that people do prefer, it really shows you how crazy matchmaking is in World of Tanks, or how crazy it has been for a while now. Because matchmaking right now in Frontlines only playing against tier 8s, it really shows you how incredible some of these vehicles are. The VK101P, the German tier 8 mouse predecessor, it actually is a super heavily armored tank that we already did know, but against tier 9s and tier 10s, it just never really was able to deliver that great of a result, right? But right here, if you have a vehicle like that defending B or C, well, you're gonna have a big kind of or very unfavorable surprise, because they tend to really defend very well. And I've never kind of considered that the VK100P will actually be a good vehicle, because when I played it, and I played it against tier 9s and tier 10s, it was a trash piece of thing. It was horrible, and I never wanted to touch it again. Now it kind of makes you want to rebuy that thing and drive it out in Frontlines and be the one guy who's sitting there and takes up all the damage. And I think that is one of the biggest changes. It's the reason why Frontline is here in the first place, to get those same tier battles out. It does make sense that it's tier 8 only. Why? Because everyone, or a lot of people, own tier 8 premium tanks. Why? Because a lot of people own tier 8 vehicles. Now, it is basically also the perfect combination, because this map is rather large, and tier 8s do tend to have some vehicles that are rather fast. They're close to becoming tier 9s, and then like high tier vehicles, and then they're going to be even stronger. But other than that, I think tier 8 is the perfect, it's been designed for this map, basically, in my opinion. It looks very much like it has been designed for this map only, and that it has this purpose. That is why I think it is very important to say that same tier battles are one of the best features here that we have, because finally you can not use premium ammunition. Although I saw that the T-44 previously was using APCR, shame on you, but you can now resort to AP shells and know that a lot of your shells will probably do damage and penetrate. If you aim them correctly, you'll be able to really test out your vehicle to its fullest strength as a tier 8, and not be afraid of having one of those huge tier 10 sucker punch guns wreck you in one shot. It does give you a lot more leeway, I think it's called, and it does allow you to do a lot more aggressive plays. Now, do people tend to do more aggressive plays? That's another question. Yes, sometimes. Let's say at the beginning, people usually tend to attack the flags a lot faster than they did before, but yeah, other than that, they're still quite satisfied with sitting in the back right behind you and letting you do the work, and you getting hit by everything. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, if we take a look at the ranking system right now, I think the ranking system also should be on the pro line. But the ranking system does tie in together with matchmaking. Not matchmaking, excuse me. With the objective game modes. We have 6 flags that we have to capture, right? We have 5 objectives that we have to defend. If we aren't able to defend all the 6 objectives that we had, all the 6 flags that we had to defend previously, and they have to destroy basically 3 of those objectives, and we have to defend 3 of those objectives. Now, what can I say to that? Now, the rank system shows you just how well you're playing, right? If you do a lot of damage, you rank up faster. If you capture a lot of points, you rank up faster. If you destroy a lot of vehicles, you rank up faster. So it shows you basically how each one of those guys is doing right now, and if they are successful in their attempts of getting to general, which is very difficult but is achievable. What I've noticed is that this game mode is one of the few game modes in World of Tanks that really does promote the objective much more than kills. I have been dealing a lot of damage, in a lot of games, I have been throughout putting shells after shells into enemy vehicles. I had one game where I did 15,000 damage. 15,000 damage by myself. And I didn't get to General first. I did get General, obviously, but I didn't get to General first. Although I did 15,000 damage, and the 15,000 damage was accumulated quite, let's say not very early on, but let's say early enough to grant me the rank of General, at least in my opinion. But what happened was that the other guy who got General before me was capturing a lot more objectives than I did. So, capturing objectives, defending objectives, destroying objectives, whatever, they grant you a lot more experience than you would get from killing and destroying tanks, or just damaging tanks. And that's one thing you have to notice very early on. Because I have been not raised, but I have learned in World of Tanks that damage is all that counts. Damage and winning the game. Damage, winning the game, and kills are all that counts. Because what happens is, in the end, you get the most experience for doing the most damage, for spawning a lot of things, whatever, and for winning the game. And that is something that does not happen in Frontlines. You can see we've done almost 5,000 damage, and we're only a lieutenant. We have not captured a single position. We have maybe defended a little bit of B, but not that much. And it shows you just how slow it basically is to be able to, or how long it takes to get to the next rank if you are not doing the one thing that the game wants you to do, and that is to capture the flag or to defend the flag. And I think that is a very nice thing, a very good thing, to have a game mode that shows you that you should be running a lot more towards the objective instead of away from it and, you know, focusing on the kills. It does promote teamwork a lot more, because to be able to capture these objectives or defend them, you'll have to have a lot more people around you to engage the guys that are sitting on the flag or that are behind the flag that are defending it. So obviously the payout should be a lot higher if you manage to capture it, and it is in this game. Killing and damaging is no longer the main thing which grants you the max amount of XP and the max amount of rank, what should you call it, rank continuation, but it does still give you a lot of credits. So at the end, at least, I always get a lot of credits, but I don't always end up as a general. Major is usually the one place I get to most of the time, but not close enough to general because I do not capture enough objective. That's just one thing you have to keep in mind. Capture those objectives, defend those objectives. They really give you a lot of experience. Very important to know, and very important to really, you know, put out and talk about it. Then the next point, what you can see in the bottom left corner of the screen is tanks that you have in your garage that you can use once you die. You can see a timer right here that shows you how long it takes for the next tank to be ready if you do end up dying. And if all these tanks right here are no longer available and you die with your one vehicle and you're still waiting for your next reinforcements to come, what happens is that your game is basically over. Let's see, there we have one guy right here who has no more tanks available in his garage and basically is knocked out of the game. That's the last thing you want to do in Frontlines, because if you time it correctly, you'll never run out of tanks. But if you kind of rush objectives too quickly at the beginning and then immediately die after that again, what ends up happening is, well, you lose your vehicles and you end up with a rank of a private, and the game is already over for you. So yeah, keep that in mind. The spawning mechanics obviously grant you additional life, additional chances, and they do come into play and are very handy if you're trying to capture a position. I think it's a great addition. It makes the entire game less kind of defensive based, makes people play a lot more offensively minded because, well, they have a lot of chances, so why not be a bit more offensive than in the standard game mode? And it makes the whole thing a little bit more dynamic in my opinion. So that's why I enjoy that as well. I think it's a big pro. It's great, and it is working out in the game mode, and it's one of the things that I think they don't need to change at all. It's perfect the way it is, and I really enjoy it. Now, moving on to the next thing that I actually wanted to cover at the very beginning, the map. The Frontlines map is a map that is basically the most complex World of Tanks map that we have ever seen. This map has, I would not say revolutionized, it has revolutionized World of Tanks a little bit, and it is the biggest map that we have ever seen, and it shows you just what World of Tanks is actually capable of. Back in the days, or at least, you know, when we're looking at maps that they've released for the standard game mode, 15 against 15, the biggest map that we have is 1,000 meters times 1,000 meters, which isn't going to be that huge as a tier 10 player. You'll run through that map quite quickly if you're in a bad chat. But this right here is an enormous map, and the awesome thing is that these sections that you have, the sectors, are not completely cut off from one another. They could have just put in mountains through all this place right here up until the last stage, where everyone was basically stuck at the one place and wasn't able to move on over in between A, B, and C, or D, E, and F. And that would have made it a lot less dynamic, because what would have happened is that a lot of people would still kind of spawn on B and A, but not a lot of people would spawn on C if you're attacking, because C is kind of very difficult to attack, but very easy to defend. So what happens is you're kind of stuck on one place, and they are just all spawning on A and B. And what happens is that C is isolated all by itself, never getting any help. And it is only being captured after A and B are being captured, and people are starting to spawn here, and that is going to take quite a long time, especially for the players who cannot spawn on any other place. And I think they did do it very well. They managed it very well. Yet these places are open. You can move in from behind of B if you're coming from A. You can move into C if you're coming from B, and vice versa. And I think this is super cool. It makes the game more fluid. It makes it very dynamic, as I mentioned previously already, and it makes the game better in the sense of map progression. It's really like a front, like different sectors of the front that might not be able to break through as quickly as the other sectors are, and it just makes it much better. It makes it more fun, and it makes it, yeah, a lot more thorough and dynamic, because you have a lot of different settings that you can fight in. You can move in from behind, and it gives you a lot more options. That's the one thing that is really cool right in there, and I think that is definitely a huge pro as well. The map was designed very well as well for tier 8 vehicles. I know it was used for tier 10s back in the days, but the design that they managed to implement, and the improvements that they managed to implement, especially on C and on B, really make the map a lot more balanced. Now, defending has become a little bit more difficult, because C has become more balanced, so you will no longer see a lot of people running around C and not being able to get through that position or that sector, because the defenders are just so overpowering there. But now C is actually it's still the hardest place to attack, the easiest to defend, but no longer that easy to defend as it was in 2018. They really did revamp the positions on the map, and I think right now we're in a very good place where the game is actually quite balanced, and things are working out quite nicely. The only thing that I would maybe suggest right now would be maybe revamp E a little bit, because E is quite difficult to defend after they get a couple of vehicles on E, but it is very similar to A, B, and C. A is basically the medium kind of place to capture. It's quite, it's okay, it's balanced for both sides, for attackers and defenders. B is basically the easiest one to capture, very difficult to defend because of the mountain that they have right there. C is the easiest to defend and the hardest to capture, but right now, since you can actually push up to this little elevated position only if you're playing on the attacking side, and it's really difficult to get there from the defending side, It has become a little bit more balanced, especially with this position over here in the back where you can actually engage anyone on C. It has become a lot more balanced for both sides, and I do really think that that is a big change, and it has made the map a lot better. Now, I think that E is the most difficult to defend over here. F is kind of medium based, and D is... Actually, D and E are quite easy to attack, to be fair. Because F is very open, E does provide some cover with... It's like the medium map, but D is very difficult to defend. Once they're in that little castle in the main room, what is going to be happening is they will just break through eventually. So, yeah, that's quite difficult. But still, yeah. Moving on to Con, because the game's almost over and I've only talked about Pro. And you can see, it is a very cool game mode. I have enjoyed it so far and I'm still enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to seeing more content to it. Now moving on to the Con section. Now combat reserves are awesome, right? You getting an arty strike with your light, medium, heavy tank, tank destroyer, that's always cool. Call an arty strike, call an airstrike. I think combat reserves are balanced in that sense, yes. But what I don't like is that artillery has 3 combat reserves. And I know you can fight me on that, but I think that artillery should not have 3 combat reserves that are 2 offensive based and one of them being, I don't know, support based. Arty should at least only have 1 combat reserve, and artillery should not have any offensive capabilities with these combat reserves, because I think that's kind of unbalanced, it's unfair, and it's not okay. I think it's just broken, and that's definitely not the thing that we should strive for in Frontlines, where basically the balance is very important. Then another thing that I've noticed, people spawning in between A, B, and C, and D and F, and just switching the flanks anytime it gets tough. Now that's obviously going to be very difficult to regulate, right? How are you going to be regulating A, B, and C? How are you going to tell them, no, don't spawn there, spawn over at C, stay at C, and attack C, because what happens is the people that are stuck on C can no longer switch the positions and they have to fight on C with 3 or 4 tanks. I think they should, like, make a maximum of vehicles that are able to actually attack a position and defend a position, and that just won't allow you to just drastically switch between those positions at all. Now, one of the biggest concerns I have right now with Frontlines is this map going to stay interesting for the next 10 months? This is going to be staying up until November 2019. That's 11 months of no new maps, and that is that has been one of the main concerns that we had over a very long period of time. Unfortunately, we lose there, but whatever. You know, when you have a lot of content, you get a lot of new tanks, you get a lot of new lines and all that stuff, but what you don't get is new maps. That is why Frontlines was such a breath of fresh air, because it was something new. It was only around for a little while, and you were playing it on this new map that was huge, enormous, and would really take a while to fully discover. But right now, the thing is that they are going to be playing this every week, like every month. The first or second week, you'll be able to play Frontlines for a week. I think after like after 2-3 weeks, you'll have seen everything. Now, the grinding aspect is going to be rather enormous. Now, nobody is telling you you have to get the Emil 1951 or the Tier 9 reward vehicles, but the grinding aspect is crazy. If you look into it, I played a week, and I didn't play, like, I had free time, so I was playing it on and off, but I wasn't playing it like a crazy guy. But at the same time, I only reached Prestige 1. I played so much Frontlines that I have gained like 12 million credits on my account, and it's crazy. So the thing is, I'm not sure if it's going to have this longevity, this lasting effect that really wowed us, because it was only there for a moment. Now, since they're bringing it back and back, it might get boring quite quickly if they don't add something new to it. If they don't add, like, I don't know, add a big gun or whatever, only attacking with medium tanks on a sector or something like that. if they vary it a little bit, because the thing is, it will get boring after a while, and it's only one map. And I asked Wargaming about it, since they do their live streams on YouTube and Twitch. I really like that they answer all the questions, however hard these questions are, and however like unfriendly I post these questions, especially the IS3A questions, stuff like that. I've been asking them about how the IS3A went through testing, and they told us actually that the IS3A wasn't faring as well statistically as people would punch it up to be. But to be fair, I don't think that the IS3A is doing that badly, to put it like that. But yeah, they agreed or they confirmed that there will be no new map for 2019 for this game mode, and I think that is a shame, because adding a new map would make it so much more dynamic. It would make it really interesting. Having 2 maps would definitely be enough for at least, I'd say, 5-6 months. But I'm not even sure if 2 maps would be enough. They would have to add something new to it. I mean, we have seen Frontlines right now, and I'm happy that it is here. I'm just kind of worried about the future of Frontlines, and if it is just going to be staling out once more, because Wargaming is trying to get this grinding thing as a fun way of enjoying the game. And I just think that the grinding scheme, Wargaming still haven't really understood that the grinding scheme of this game is not the reason why people are coming back to it. It's obviously a reason people have to play is because they have to grind a specific line to reach a specific tank, but the grind is not the fun. The fun is playing the vehicle. The fun is having a vehicle that's fully fledged out that you can play and have some good games in that you are, enjoying. And the grind is not the enjoyment most of the time, especially if you're grinding terrible Polish tanks, right? So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. I really enjoy this game, and I think it is a great concept, and it's been great. It's been working out greatly so far, and I love Frontlines, but I'm just worried about future of Frontlines. How is it going to evolve after this? 9 months of Frontlines, like right now, is it going to be staying as enjoying as it is right now? Yeah, who knows? I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on the topic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.